Hello, good evening, and welcome to the RCB Sports Show. My name is Noel Greene, and joining me are RCB regulars Nicholas Rynne and June Clare. On this evening's show, we'll discuss the Clare County Football and Hurling Championship and how the championship structure for 2020 will work out, with sports journalist Seamus and Páraic McMahon. If you want to contact the show, you can leave any comments or opinions here on our Facebook page, RCB Sport, on our Twitter account at RCB Sport. You can listen to us on 92.5 and 94.8 FM in West Clare and online at www.rcb.ie. You can also listen on the TuneIn app on your phone, tablet or laptop and catch up with us on RCB Sport YouTube channel. First I'd like to do is to welcome our special guests, Seamus and Paudie McMahon. Paudie, I started with yourself, if I may. Just a general question. For a long time this year, there was a real fear we wouldn't have any GAA anywhere, but we have a plan for club and county. How relieved are you that GAA is back? Now, as we know it, granted, but it's back.
Yeah, no, great to join you again. I suppose before we began the discussion the last time we were on, the feeling amongst all of us contribution was that there probably wouldn't be a championship. So I guess it's great that it's coming back. And some guys, and you can even see with the pitches reopening, they're not flocking to the field, but it's great that they're able to go, whether it's down with a few footballs and kicking the ball over the bar or getting to the hurling wall ball. So there has been a relief, and it's been great, even from a mental health point of view, Noel, for a lot of people's well-being, to go out somewhere new and to get to the pitch and just to meet people you haven't met in a while. Yeah. And I know teams are back, so the lads are meeting their friends, and girls that are on the Camogie and ladies football teams are meeting people they've been dying to meet for a while. So it's very positive, and hopefully there won't be any consequences in terms of increasing cases of COVID-19.
Well, here's talking. But I suppose we'll start with the Clare County structure for 2020. It might be a little bit different from the last couple of years, but we'll start with the hurling. Can you explain to us, to all our listeners and viewers, how the 2020 Clare hurling chapter is going to work out?
Okay, yeah, no bother, no. So I'm sure Seamus can interrupt me anyway if I go astray with any of this. So from the hurling point of view, the previous years it has changed in that your first round it's an open draw, 8 teams versus 8. The winning 8 teams then are, as opposed to previous years where there would have been a winner section and a loser section. First round, as has been said last night, is a bit of a dead rubber. So you're going to have teams going through into the second round. Once they win, the 8 winners from round 1 will play the 8 losers, and then whoever wins that second round game is going to advance to the quarterfinals, and then you're left with your 8 teams there, and then it's quarterfinals, semi-finals, finals, if I'm correct, and then the same format will be kept for the intermediate hurling championship.
Okay, so each team roughly gets a guarantee of 2 matches, is that correct? I'm trying to follow it the best I can.
Yeah, 2 matches is a guarantee, and then at the board meeting there on Monday, intermediate clubs were maybe hoping that there'd be a second, because there will be a Senior B championship in the senior of some sort for teams that don't progress to the quarterfinals. So the teams in the intermediate championship were hoping there would maybe be an intermediate B championship or something, just to keep lads playing, because we know teams are allowed train since early June, so they have been training and they've been putting in a big effort. So just clubs are hopeful that they'll maybe get more than 2 games for their efforts.
And do you think this way, this championship structure, do you think it's going to work? Do you think it's as best as we can get it?
Well, there was dissenting voices, I suppose, expressed at the county board meeting, that some people felt what was there for the last previous years in terms of having a winner section, a loser section, and then the round 3, that you had a trapdoor to fall through. I suppose you could afford to lose a game, whereas there is a bit of disagreement with the first round being not too much of an impact. But as I have said to people that are against it, if you just win your first game, win your second game, keep winning.
Yeah,
that's all teams really have to worry about.
Winning can be a good habit and get you momentum. Seamus, what's your opinion on it? As we mentioned, it's great that we have GAA. There's a long time we were fearing it wouldn't happen, but it's great that it's back. And what's your opinion on the club structures at the moment?
Well, I suppose first of all, it's great that it's back, and the hope would be that there's no relapse and that there are no cases of coronavirus going to interrupt the progress of the competition. you know, at the county board meeting last night, yes, as a number of clubs came in hoping to change the format to what was there last year, or to 4 groups of 4. But I think credit to the Masters Fixtures Committee who put it together for their explanations as to why they came up with this format rather than any other format. And I think that as the night went on last night, a number of clubs changed their view. Clubs that would have come in gung-ho for looking for change from what was proposed, finished up voting for what was proposed. You know, I know the 6 Mile Bridge proposed last year's format, seconded by Cratloe, with the proviso that it start on the 17th, 18th of July. And straight away, 3 or 4 clubs changed their mind. They weren't happy about starting that early. They felt it was too soon, that they wouldn't be ready, and they needed at least another week. So there was a change there for a number of clubs. You know, I suppose John Leinster put a very good point at the end of the meeting last night. He said we're living in very strange times, and it's going to be known going forward as the COVID Championship. And he said it's as simple as that. People have to adapt for this particular year and hope that things will work out. Because a couple of months ago, as Paudie said at the outset there, we all felt that there may not have been any competition of any description this year. Now there are championships both at club level and inter-county level, and hopefully there won't be any interruption and that things will go ahead. It may not be the format that the majority would have liked at the outset, but it is a format, and every club is guaranteed a minimum of 2 games. And if you take the Senior B into account, I'd say all clubs will get a minimum of 3 games. And you know, the committee went away last night to say with the request to look at an intermediate B, and I think that they're going to come back with that. They will factor in that, you know, down the line. So I think, you know, it's just something different, but it's something that people have no choice with this year, and I think clubs will just focus on that now and get ready. Like, there will be, of course, there's going to be excitement in the opening rounds, because you will have a couple of big guns clashing, and you may have half your, as we call them, top seeds gone by round 2. You know, if they don't win in round 2, they're out, and you know, that's going to happen. But I suppose it's like the old days. If you're going to win a championship, you have to prepare to beat everybody. So, you know, it's an equal playing field from that point of view.
Sure, is Nicholas, if I can bring you in here, the 2 boys have mentioned that it's strange times, bizarre times. We were fearing that there wouldn't be any club or county championships at all this year, but we have a structure, senior and intermediate. What's your opinion that the GAA is back? Teams are training. They're all set for the end of July for the football, and July for the hurling, and the start of August for the football. What's your own opinion on how the championship is happening?
Yeah, I think just well explained there by Paudie and Seamus there. I think, you know, the structure is good. That finalized last night, like, because it is strange times, and you know, if we'd gone back to last year's format, I think, and bring it a week or 2 early, and I think it'd be too many games. You have to remember, and I don't like bowing down to county managers, but I think Brian Lohan has been very fair in what he's asked for, and that is that he has a level playing field with Limerick, which you know, this structure allows him to get his team back, you know, for 3 weeks or whatever before the championship, and I think that's fair play to Brian Lohan, like, and it's fair play to the clubs. I think, you know, you guarantee 2 games. You might go into the Senior B if you're beaten. But, you know, it's a level playing field, as Seamus said there, and it's an unusual year. I mean, 4 or 5 weeks ago, a couple of months ago, we would have taken this no problem. I think every club would have taken what's on offer now, and it's a chance to get players back into, you know, they're back training now, and it's great to see that's on, you know, my own local pitch, and they're back training. Young fellas bursting to go, mad to go, and that's the same all over the county. And I think it's a good format. It's the best under the circumstances, and I think, you know, you have 2 chances. Like, the first day is probably a dead rubber, but you get you back hurling. Maybe that's a good thing. Get teams back on the pitch and have a game. And as Paudie said there, like, you both win your first game, you win your second game, and as Seamus said, if you're good enough, you know, you can't pick and choose where the draw is going to go. So if you're going to win a championship, it doesn't matter who comes along, because you have to beat the best anyway. And I think it's very fair. I was very happy with the way the county board ran the whole thing last night in difficult circumstances. and how they got everybody in. And Joe Cooney did an excellent job in sharing it and was well able to answer all questions, like, and brought in the proper people, like, to explain it, you know. And from that point of view, I thought it was very good as well. So I'm very happy with what was decided last night. I know other clubs had different views. A few clubs, the Bridge and Cratlaw especially, but I'm not too sure where, you know, the time was the thing, like. And if you get caught up in the, you know, the time is too narrow, the window is too narrow, and for last year's format, it would have taken up too much time, and we don't know what's going to happen, like, at the moment. I mean, the radio today all day is talking about, in media, national media, about flights going, you know, the Ryanair and Aer Lingus are meant to fly people all over the world, and they'll be coming back in a couple of weeks' time, and we just don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to scaremonger or anything, but you know, I think the 5 weeks is as much as we can hope for, and I think that's a good way, like, to not extend it too much and putting people under more pressure. So it's best to look to everyone, and everyone has the same chance, and I'm happy with it anyway. Definitely not.
Is it a big positive, I suppose, with clubs? I mean, everyone would agree that there can't be any mass gatherings of thousands of people into county championship. So club was always going to come back first, and rightly so, because the players themselves wanted clubs to come back first. And the fact that we've guaranteed into July and August, those 2 months are just club players and club games only. In the county championship, I believe it's not due to start in October. So it's great that they have those guaranteed weeks that those matches will be played in the Nicholas.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think it's very important that clubs get the limelight, for want of a better way of putting it. The whole focus is on clubs now until the end of September. You know, and I think that's something that had been slipping away from the GAA, and by accident, if you like, I suppose, and this pandemic has caused a lot of change. But, you know, if one good thing comes out of this from a GAA perspective, maybe it will be that the focus will fall back on the club, because it had been drifting away from the club. You know, we all love watching the inter-county games, and obviously they're huge, and they've been fantastic games in the round robins system and the Super 8s in football for the last couple of years. You know, we've all enjoyed them, but the club has been suffering. You know, and you have to. The club is the lifeblood of the whole organisation, and it's so vital in every parish. And I think we saw that during this pandemic, the way club people came out and put their shoulder to the wheel and helped out in every facet within the community, and helped out elderly people and did the shopping and whatnot. You know, and I think that the whole focus has to be on the club. And going back to the other point, Nicholas touched on it there is credit due to the Clare county managements who have, you know, accepted this, and they have said that once they have their players for the couple of weeks before they play the championship, they'll be quite happy. You know, and it's great that they're buying into this as well, and hopefully that will be the case. And obviously, as teams are knocked out, unfortunately for those teams, but as they're knocked out, the players from those teams will be able to resume training with the county. And, you know, by the middle of September, the majority of players will be available to the county, except those who are in concluding stages of the club championships. So I think that all sides deserve credit for the way they have put this together. And yes, it is a different championship and it's a new format, but, you know, the times have changed and we're in a different situation. We're living in a totally different world, so, you know, we have to go along with it.
I think myself, sorry, June. I just think I think Croke Park missed a big trick this year. I think they could have went and just gave, like as Seamus said, the clubs are in their limelight, but I think they could have given him the whole year. You know, made it a club only year instead of rushing off the inter-county championship like they put out these pennant. You know, I'd said teams weren't supposed to be back before I think September 14th or something. And there are, I think Brian Lohan, from what I can gather, isn't back, and the Clare footballers aren't back, but other counties in Munster are back already. And you had the GAA president and director general coming out last week and saying there won't be any sanctions or penalties for those clubs that are doing it.
That's like having a rule and not enforcing it, really.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, as Seamus had said, it was the GAA clubs in the locality that came out as what Father Harry Bohan would call the community leaders. They were stepping up when people needed to. And Croke Park, I think, really has let down the clubs. Like we saw what they did with the Railway Cup, you know, what was once a great competition when you go back to the 70s and the 60s, and it's now disintegrated and it doesn't really exist. But I don't know, they had a year, because after decades, at least a decade, if not more, of neglecting the club game, they had a chance to put it as pride of place. and they fluffed it. So that's a big disappointment, and that lies firmly at Croke Park's door as opposed to Clare GAA. They're just following the instructions that they're getting.
Lads, I was at the county meeting there last night, and one of the things that came out of it was there was 18 teams in the Junior B, and there was an awful lot of disharmony that some of those players would only get one game compared to the senior clubs who would get a guaranteed of 2 games. And for Junior B sort of players and Junior A sort of players, it's a leisurely activity. For those lads paying their membership, to be deprived to say that you're only getting possibly 1 game because we don't have refs, we don't have officials, we can't put the COVID-19 policies in place. It's very hard for those sort of players who look on and, well, because I'm not a senior sort of player, I'm not the top marquee player in my club, I'm being disregarded. Is that a fair point?
I think that, I don't know if people are really studying all this in detail. It's going to be so hard to host all the competitions, number one, because of the social distancing, and to try and hold games in venues. You're going to have to give plenty of time between each game at a venue so that you can sanitize the venue after the first game, clean it out, wash it down, clean out your dressing rooms. You know, I don't know if clubs or if people involved with teams fully understand the amount of work that's going to be involved this year. And I think that's a big issue, and that's going to be a big issue for county boards and for clubs. You know, there's a lot of people shouting and moaning today, why isn't every underage competition from under 12 to minor been run 12, 13, 15, 17, 18, whatever. They're looking for 6 underage hurling championships and the same maybe in underage football. People don't seem to realise, you know, venues and how they're sanitised and how dressing rooms are prepared all come into this. Referees, you know, for the last number of years, we've all seen referees. A referee will referee a game, will say 6 mile bridge. He'll then jump into his car and he'll go up to Tulla and do a line for another referee, do a linesman for another referee, and vice versa. That's all in a different situation this year because of the COVID-19, and you have to sanitize and change gear and everything when you're leaving one venue and going to another venue. And I don't think people fully realize what's involved, you know. So I think that people have to sit down, study all the guidelines in absolute detail, and realize that there's only so much that can be done. And I think that's going to be proven in the next couple of weeks, the difficulties with running these games. Like the first weekend of, say, the hurling, the 24th and 5th of July, you have 8 senior games, you have 8 intermediate games, you have the Junior A, Junior B and Junior C. Now count up all those games, all the referees and linesmen and umpires that are going to be needed, all the dressing rooms and what has to be done. I don't know if it's possible to do all that, and I honestly think that some people are jumping the gun and they don't. You know, it's all right calling for games. We all want games, and every young fellow out the stair wants to be playing games. But the organisation is really going to be stretched this year, and there are a lot of grounds that won't be able to facilitate those games. Like the pitch surfaces might be fine, but the dressing room situation, do you have covered accommodation? Can you let in people, etc.? COVID officers at every venue. People have to sit down and really study what's involved. And I think that's going to be a huge test going forward. It's going to be the same in every county. It simply is going to be the same in every county. You know, and going back to the championship, even the arguments last night about running last year's format and the year before format. I suppose Clare is unique in that they have a very, very high percentage of dual players and dual clubs. So a lot of the players involved, 50% of the players who are going to be playing at a senior level will be playing both codes. And that has to be factored in. You know, the pressure that's going to be on them playing every week, you know, and all that had to be considered. And that's why the shorter format, you know, I'd say was being pushed or was being recommended. So there's a huge, you know, I'm wary of the amount of problems that could develop trying to run these competitions.
Yeah, Paudie, I saw a news report actually on RT. Mark Marcy was at a game between an off-league club and I think it was a Wexford club. I think the off-league club were the home team. The Wexford group came. They didn't even go into their room. I think they did the stretches beside the dugout and massage before the game, played the game, and they didn't even take that shower after the game as well. So that's what's probably going to happen, where the clubs aren't even going to be able to use the dressing rooms. So it's basically get into your car, put your helmet, play a game, and then go home.
Yeah, that's the, as far as I know, no, that's the way it's going to be. Even club dressing rooms are off limits. There'll be
Yeah.
one room that probably clubs, if they had it, that would have been used as a physio or a medical room, that'll be transferred into what's now called an isolation room. Clubs, prior to the reopening, were supposed to have sanitizer units and COVID-19 social distancing signage all over their grounds as well. So yeah, it'll be unusual, I suppose, for club managers, because technically players aren't allowed to travel together either, unless they're in the same household, so they'll have to travel separately to games. So you're talking, if you have a panel to 25, you could have 20 cars coming from the one panel alone, and then their meeting for the first time is when they're starting their warm up over on the pitch, wherever that is. But as Seamus was kind of touching on there, Noel, with the, I suppose, the risks involved, and God forbid someone involved in Clare GAA was to be diagnosed with COVID-19. But say, for example, if it was a referee, you know, there's a whole element, the contact tracing that the HSE do, that every person that individual came into contact with has to restrict their movements and to self-isolate for 14 days. So like that, if that was to happen, the whole championship itself will kind of be put in turmoil, I suppose. But hopefully we wouldn't have to do that, because you'd be talking members of the panel or management would have to self-isolate, and you know, where does that leave the games then? So I think there's just an onus on everyone involved in GAA and in Clare GAA to be restricting their movements where possible, and to be obviously following all the advice that the Department of Health and the Chief Medical Officer are giving out.
Yeah, there's a lot of warnings, I suppose, a lot of things that have to be done, Nicholas, but I suppose hopefully we can get all these games played. But as Seamus said, 8 senior games, 8 intermediate games in the hurling, and it's going to be very difficult, but they're going to give it a right go and try and get all these games played.
Yeah, I saw the work that went in our own club there in Kilnamona, 2 pitches to get them ready just for training. It was a huge effort, a huge amount of meetings, and everybody has to know exactly what they're doing. You need COVID officers and sanitizers, and it's a huge logistical effort just to get ready for training. So you can imagine on match day what it's going to be like in pitches, and how many stewards are going to be, a whole lot of extra stewards, and everybody has to know what they're doing, and it has to be done properly. Like, so I agree with what Seamus is saying there. Like, you know, it's just a huge effort, and I agree with what Paudie said as well. Like, the inter-county could have been left aside, could have been stood down for this year, I think, because with social distancing, it will be much easier, and it's still a big job to do it for club games. But it's going to be, how are you going to get the social distancing? It's going to be huge effort to get it for big championship games, and the amount of stewards they'll need for that, and if they're going to get them, and are they, do they believe that stewards will just turn up and go into big crowds and put themselves in the front line, you know, for games like that? So it could have been, you know, but it really does put the club back into focus now, and hopefully now that this opportunity won't be lost. I heard the prominent hurler saying it would be a great time now to look at putting the club on early in the year, give them a few months early in the year, and then have the senior championships the county championships later in the year. The inter-county championship, sorry, and you know, so they really need to look at this, like, and see that the club is centre, and this puts the club right back into focus. But it's a huge effort. I could see that the secretary, the amount of work secretaries have to do, treasurers, chairmen of clubs, and all the backroom team, and all, it's a huge effort. And people just don't realise, evening after evening, I've been up in the field, they're giving a hand, and a lot of other people as well, like, and you have to put up signs, you have to make sure the walkways are right, you have to make sure parking and toilet facilities have to be cleaned out on a regular basis. And some clubs don't have huge manpower for that, because people are away and people are gone back to work and stuff like that. So it's a huge effort, and you know, I'm not sure that people realise that. So, you know, how many games can you cope with? You know, you can't cope with every game, unfortunately. You just cannot cope for everybody. You know, I'd have to take my head off to what I see club officials do now. They're going way above and beyond, you know, the call of duty in what they're doing. They're spending endless hours, meetings after meetings after meetings, making sure that they get this right. They can't afford to slip up, and you know, they didn't sign up for this. Like, you know, they have their they have their day jobs and whatever, they have their families and they have everything, and they're all coming out of lockdown as well, and they're maybe entitled to go on holidays and bits of breaks, but they're tied to the club at the moment, getting ready for games. And I hope that's not lost on people who are moaning. I hear a lot of people moaning, oh, this isn't right and that isn't right. You know, well, come along and fix it then if you know, the hurlers and the ditch and that, to borrow a phrase, I suppose, like, you know, was it's going to take a huge effort in every county to get this right and to pull it off. Like, it's not that simple. Like, COVID hasn't gone away. It's still a very serious problem. And if it gets out of hand again, which, you know, I'm very fearful of, you know, the likes of Shannon Airport, Dublin Airport, people going in and out. But that's for the government, I suppose, not for the GAA. Like, but I think the big trick is going to be the big inter-county games and the scramble for tickets and whatever, like, you know. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, Jim, just getting your opinion on all this, and do you think it can all go off smoothly as best as it can? Jim, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you there. I suppose in terms of that, I'm hopeful things can go to plan, Noel. But as you said, all it takes is one relapse, one player from one game, and if a game is distorted or put back a week, it puts the whole championship in backlog. And you're really playing catch up, and you really need to go into midweek games and stuff like that, and it really brings the whole sort of scenario forward. But just in relation, if I can turn out maybe to you, Seamus, the football championship, different structure this year. The groups are gone. I know Milltown and Dobbeg for both lobbied at Mass there last night, looking for the group format, the 4 groups of 3 to be brought back in terms of the football championship. But apparently draws aren't allowed in groups, and games can't be finished on the day. You can't have a decisive winner in a group game. Draws have to be permitted, and that really scuppered the idea of groups.
Yeah, that's right. You know, as I said, both Doonbeg and Milltown proposed 4 groups of 3. But as Colin Brown explained in detail, you know, a draw means a point each. You cannot, according to general rule, play extra time in a group situation. It's a league basis. So then you could have a team playing their last game already out of the championship, and with no relegation. There's no incentive for that team to put in any effort. And the team that we're playing could run up a big score and it could distort the whole thing. So I thought he explained that very well, and I think that was a big point in people voting against that format. Yeah, as you say, it's a totally new format. You know, 12 teams, 6 first round games, open draw. Anyone can meet anybody. You know, you could have Leicester's finalists could be meeting in the first round. I suppose that type of thing will add to the excitement. You know, you're guaranteed 2 games. Slightly different to the hurling in that the 6 first round winners then play 3 games in round 2, and the 3 winners there are in the county semi-final. And the 6 first round losers then play 3 games in round 2, and the 3 winners there have a 3-way playoff over 1 weekend for the 4th semi-final spot. You know, with 1 game on the Friday evening and the other game on the Monday evening. Now, that may be able to be spread out over a week if you have no dual players involved. And you could play one of your playoff games on a hurling weekend, as we call it, where there'll be no dual players, but the chances of that happening could be slim enough given all the dual players that are involved. But it's going to add to the excitement. You know, the likes of Kilmurray and Milltown meeting in the first round. You know, that's obviously going to whet the appetite. Or Pratlaw meeting Milltown. You know, teams that have been at the forefront for the last couple of years. So there's definitely going to be a huge excitement and a huge interest in the draw and how it's going to pan out come the first round or 2. But again, it's played off, completed over 5 weeks. All games are results on the day. You know, it could go down to penalties to decide your championship. You know, and there's a lot of talk in the last week that penalties could decide your All-Ireland champions this year in hurling or football. And the same could happen in the county championship with no time for replays. So, you know, that I suppose that's another element to it. It's not something that most people would like to see a county championship or any championship decided on a penalty shootout. You know, I don't think that that would be very fair given the effort that players will put in. But for 1 year, it's all you can do, and that's unfortunately the problem. But yes, there's huge excitement at the prospect of what will come up for the championship and what the pairings will be.
And I suppose, Paudie, the draws are going to take place Wednesday night. It's going to be take place. They're going to be live streamed. But just in relation to the 3 teams that make the county semi-final, will they have a long wait in terms of the 4 team that sort of makes it? And the 4 team that's coming in, they'll have been involved in a 3-way playoff, and they'll probably, if they are a dual club, they might be carrying serious momentum coming into that semi-final, where the 3 teams that reach that semi-final probably might be waiting for the 4th opponent. So is there an advantage maybe coming in as the 4th place team rather than that you're coming in carrying that extra bit of game, that extra bit of championship battle, and you're coming in after going through probably a 2-3-way playoff, coming through that, you're carrying serious momentum? Is there a bit of advantage there, or going through the straight way, being one of those 3 teams to come through and be getting to look at that 4th opponent? Is that a bit of an advantage for the 3 teams that come through as well?
Hard to know, I suppose, Jim, what way would be the best way to come through. I suppose the main thing, to give you a short answer, is as long as you get through, that's the main thing. But some clubs have said there's a slight disadvantage if you were to win your first game. They've said it's nearly more beneficial, talking to clubs, to lose the first round and then to get the extra game, as you're saying. But like, if you end up, say, like Seamus mentioned, a couple of teams there, Kilmurray, Brecon, Milltown, Cratloe, say if they were to lose their first round and they end up in that 3-way playoff, it's not easy to come out of. So, you know, I suppose it depends on the draw to say the 3-way playoff would be a favourable one. And then, but you're right in saying the more games would suit teams. But then just looking even over in Germany with the Bundesliga, like there's some studies being done on the injuries being picked up by players because of the return, you know, having not played a competitive game in so long. So then if you're kind of having to play a couple of games, so many in a shorter period of time, is that going to catch you? Whereas the teams that progress through from the second round straight away to the semi-final, they've time to get the recovery in and to make sure they're fit and healthy. So it's a very, very hard one. Like, the argument would never be solid either way in a normal year, let alone in, as Ger Lyons christened it, the COVID-19 championship.
Yeah, and I suppose, Nicholas, in terms of the relegation being taken off the table in terms of the senior football championship, and the intermediate side, who wins it, they get promoted. There's no sort of relegation. There's no dead rubbers as well. So in terms of that, those 2 games, it's their championship lives underlined. There's going to be no team that's going to say, well, our championship is over, let's get through this game. Every game in the football, if there was a group stage, there could be a dead rubber. There's no dead rubber in this system.
Yeah, and I suppose looking at it, I suppose it can make things more exciting. I know that you know, nobody's going to go up or go down, and that has to be the way it is this year, obviously. And I think it'll be exciting. Everybody has to go out, and this is a kind of a championship, I think, where everybody has to go out and win their games, and it'll be, and that's it. And that's the way a championship should be, really, anyway. But you know, the fact that there's no one going down, I suppose, makes it a bit easier. It takes a lot of pressure off anyway for managers. Like, you know, no manager wants to go down, anyway, his team to go down. But it'll be a good championship, I think, anyway. You know, every game is important, and you know, it's what more do you want? Like, in the year that's in it, it'll be different. It'll be unusual, but for the supporters, say, you know, they'll be going down to see their clubs and their players playing, and that's what they want to see. Like, we didn't think we'd be playing a game only a few weeks ago. I think we were wondering, would we see a game? So I mean, everybody has to take what's on offer now, and make the most of it. And you know, I don't think you can be arguing too much that this is the wrong way, this is the right way. This is what it is, and this is where we're at. You know, and if your team is good enough, your team is going to is going to go a long way in the championship. And if your team is not ready and not prepared and not good enough, maybe, well then, you know, and that's the same every year anyway. So you know, it's probably more difficult with the football, but I think where we're at, like I think we have to say well done to the county board, well done to the committee for you know, when you had to sit down and try and sort this out and see how you're going to play it in such a small window. It was a huge task because there's so many different scenarios, and like Seamus said there, like, you know, if you have draws and so on, you know, so to work all that out, it took a huge amount of work. I'd say unbelievable amount of time and thought had to go into it, and I think they did really well. I'd have to say that they did really well, because it must be a headache. Where do you start, like, to plan this? And what they've come up with, I think, is as good as you could get in the times that's in it, and the time frame is the thing. Like, the pressure of time is probably the thing that they had to work that out. So
there's also another factor, you know, that a lot of people maybe haven't really considered yet. There are some clubs who won't have their full panels. There are some clubs where there's one or two players who won't be going back because of the COVID-19, because they're living with somebody who has underlying conditions. You know, I know of a few players who have informed the clubs that they can't take a risk. They either have a child who has underlying condition or they're living with elderly parents. You know, and a number of clubs will be short a player or two, you know, and a key player in many cases, you know, and that's outside of any injuries that will pick up. So, you know, that I think that was another consideration in the shorter version of the championship that has been proposed. You know, that had to be factored in as well, and it is a reality. You know, there are a number of clubs who know at this stage that there are one or two of their players who won't be going back this year or won't be risking it. You know, we've seen it at inter-county referee level already. David Goffers, I think, has said he's not going back.
That's right, yeah.
So we don't know, and there may be some in Clare, which will be another factor of pressure for referees as well. You know, there are a lot of considerations that, and Nicholas is making a point out. He's 100% right. The amount of effort that the 5-man Masters Fixtures Committee put into just coming up with this format, the amount of time and the amount of thought that they have put into it, and the amount of various ideas that they had to, you know, consider, played a big part, and I think they've come up with a very good proposal in the circumstances.
Seamus, is there a plan B if anything does go wrong? God forbid, we hope it doesn't, but is there any plan B? I know nationwide there might be something, but in Clare, is there any plan B in case this does happen?
Not that I'm aware of, because, you know, if God forbid somebody tests positive after a match that would have been played, you know, the contact tracing, everybody that would have been involved in that game, from referee to umpires to linesmen to the panel of players to the mentors on both sides, you know, they're going to have to isolate, and the probabilities that they will just have to be out of the competition because you're gone for a couple of weeks. It's not a question of just the one person isolating. So I think people are just keeping their fingers crossed that no such occurrence like that will interrupt the competition. So, you know, I don't know what else they can do or how they can have a plan B in that situation. There's no time to postpone games and go. It was an ideal opportunity for the GAA to say, right, this is the club year. And if things went well, they could have gone on and run the provincial club and All-Ireland club and finished it out, and just said for 1 year inter-county is gone. Because, like, running the inter-county, I don't know what's to be gained by it this year. You won't have big crowds. They've already said that the maximum they'll get into Croke Park come All-Ireland final time will be 30,000. So your income from the gates is going to be way down. So I don't know what's really to be gained by pushing those competitions. And even take the inter-county football. It resumes on the 17th of October. Clare play Fermanagh in the National League. They play Armagh in the National League the following week. They play Tip in the first round of the championship the following week. 3 huge games in 14 days. And that's a huge ask for any county. And there are a number of counties who are in similar situations, who are vying for promotion or fighting to avoid relegation. Like Clare are in the position that they can be promoted and they can be relegated. So the 2 league games are crucial, and how they'll get on in those, will play a big part in the mood in the camp going into phase tip of the championship. And it's the exact same for Tipperary. They are battling to hold on to Division 3 football status. The odds at this stage might suggest that they'll be relegated. That probably won't help going in against Clare in the first round of the football championship, but there are 3 huge weekends, and hopefully there'll be no injuries and the players will be able to get through for that, because you'll need everybody. But you know, I don't know if the full thing has been thought through to the very end by all the powers that be, but it's what it is now, and we just have to hope that it will work out well and look forward to maybe some great games.
Paudie, in relation to the minor championship, the draws were made for the minor hurling and minor football. Maybe you can enlighten us in that in relation to Clare's opponents, and will those minor games be on before the senior games this year, or how will those minor games operated? Will they be played in front of crowds?
It's very unlikely, Jim, at this stage. I'd say double headers would be a non-runner altogether. For any games, be they club, be they county, within county level, within club level, I'd say it's just to try, you know, to minimise the risk, I suppose, that we were talking about. But just on the draws themselves, Clare are going to play Cork in the Munster Minor Hurling Championship. The winner then advances to play Limerick in the last 4. The minor football is the same as the senior football. You'll have Clare playing Tipperary in the quarter-final and then progressing to play either Limerick or Waterford in the semi-final. So a good chance for them to hopefully get to that Munster final. And then in the under-20 hurling championship, Clare will be away to Tipperary in the quarter-finals. That's obviously knockout. And the winners facing Waterford in the next round. And interestingly enough, with that particular bunch of under-20 hurlers, they didn't play minor county because it was that was a grade that was when it switched from under-18 to under-17, they lost out. So I suppose it's a bit of relief for them in a way. There was the prospect, obviously, as we said 6 weeks ago, that they wouldn't have got to play minor hurling for their county or under-20 hurling for their county. So Sean Doyle and the lads there will be hoping to make the most of it in that.
And I suppose, Seamus, just in terms of that minor championship, the teams that say if Clare make the Munster hurling minor final or Clare make the Munster minor football final, do they have to win that Munster final to progress, or is there a quarter final for the losing Munster finalists, or is it just the provincial champions go straight through through an All-Ireland semi-final?
Yeah, as far as I know, there are no second chances at minor level. And if you're beaten, you're out. As far as that's my understanding in minor hurling and minor football, simply because the time isn't there. And the other thing that's going to be coming in, even though there's no talk of it yet in detail, but obviously your colleges will be back and there'll be talk about college games. I see already St. Brendan's and Killarney and Tralee CBS are annoyed that there's no consideration being given to finishing last year's colleges championship, for which both are qualified for the All-Ireland semi-finals. So I'm sure that whatever about last year's, there will be an effort to try and organise this year. So that's going to affect minor competitions and how they work. And you know, as the year goes on, if, as we hope, there are no relapses with the virus and everything goes ahead, there'll be more and more calls for colleges games to resume, and the new third level colleges coming up. And as this championship is running right up to Christmas, you know, there'll be a lot of demands. So I presume that was factored into the format for the minor, you know, and that the minor is knockout, no second chances. So.
And on that, Seamus, I suppose it's a big disappointment that you mentioned the colleges, that we don't, St. Flannan's College won't get to finish their the Dr. Crow Cup campaign. They got to the semi-finals of that. They were due to play St. Raphael's College, right? They were a fantastic team to watch all year, and you know, considering only 2 games left to play in that competition, it's a bit, again, not to be knocking Crow Park again, but it's disappointing that the decision was made not to proceed with that competition with only 2 games left, because I know the post-primary council had lobbied to try get the competition played, but the decision was made from hierarchy in Crow Park not to go ahead with it, which has been described as bitterly disappointing by people.
Yeah, I agree with your party. It's a huge pity, because that was a particularly good St. Flannan's team, and as we all saw, there were some outstanding games. They had won a great Hartley Cup championship. They had come along then and beaten, I suppose, the kings of colleges hurling of recent times, St. Kieran's in an All-Ireland quarter-final, and they were really looking forward to finishing off the year. It's disappointing for the players involved. You know, you don't get too many chances to win Pro Cups and to win an All-Ireland colleges title, and it often is the basis for inter-county achievements down the line. So, you know, for those group of players, it is disappointing. You know, but many of those players are still eligible for the coming year's competition. So, you know, that will be factored in, I suppose, as well when that get underway. Hopefully it will.
And Nicholas, just finally there, just in terms of the underage competitions, in terms of underage hurling and underage football juvenile competitions, the Board and Og and Board and Pell, they're sort of in a rush in the same sense, because they have to get those competitions finished before the minor county, minor inter-county hurling and minor inter-county football start, and same way the under 20 inter-county hurling. So for club players as well, I suppose, Seamus, that aren't inter-county players, they're going to have a jam-packed schedule in terms of games in a short space, and the risk for those club players is that it might be straight knockout in those grades in underage hurling and underage football.
Yeah, maybe. I know at an executive meeting of the county board a week or two ago, it was decided that each of the board and O's would run 2 competitions each. And in football, it's under 14 and under 17, and in hurling, it's under 14 and under 18. And the football is due to start on the week of the 22nd of July, I think, that week, and the hurling the following week. You know, with under 14 on Monday evenings, and the under 17 or minor hurling on Wednesday evenings. But they're under pressure to get those. I think they've spoken to both county managers, and they've agreed a format where they'll get those games played off before the players are pulled in for the county training for the upcoming Munster Championship. So there isn't that big a window there. You know, I know, as I said at the outset there's been a lot of demand from different clubs looking for underage hurling and football at all grades. I don't know how that could happen, and I don't know how it could be done, because there aren't enough venues, there aren't referees, they're just simply it wouldn't be a runner, in my opinion, because you have crossover players, you have under 12s playing on some under 14 teams, and 14s playing on some under 16 teams, etc. And it's there, you know, that issue is there. So from what I know, the board and Oaks consulted widely. They sat down with the county executive. It was the county executive made the decision as to what would be run. You know, and I think if they get 2 competitions each run off this year, I think it will be a great achievement.
Nicholas, can I just ask you, what's your opinion about the underage teams championships being run?
Yeah, well, I suppose, like I said already, and everybody seems to be on the one page here. You know, the way it's been organised at the moment is the best that we can expect, and people can't expect miracles. And Seamus pointed out there, the venues aren't there, the manpower is not there, the referees are not there. You're going to have this has to be well stewarded now. It isn't just turn up at a venue and you walk in and you know, and the players have to be organised. God help the mothers and the fathers anyway, because they can't even have a shower after the match, and they'll have to ship them around, you know, to all sorts of venues in a short space of time as well. So, and the other one I feel sorry for in all this, I don't know if it feels sorry for, but it's going to be a lot of pressure on managers, because they don't really know who they have or what team they have, who's in form. You know, all managers of all grades, like, they haven't seen any games. They haven't seen. They'll have only a short time with them in training, and there's going to be an awful lot of disappointed young players and older players, because the manager will be under pressure. He can only pick 15, and he doesn't know who's in form and who's not in form, and he's going to have a huge balancing act to do to try and put out his best 15 and his best 5 subs and that as well. So there's all sorts of problems for everybody. So really, we all have to kind of stand back and appreciate what has been done so far and what will be done, and just go along and just realise that it's not going to be perfect, but it's the best we could hope for. I remember talking to Noel Greene there from Kilmahel there, and he would have gone. He said up to Derry to see an under 12 game, you know, if that's what it took. So Now we're going to have a good lot of games. We'll all get to see matches, and as many people as possible will get to play in matches, and that's what it's about. And I think well done to everybody involved. It's just a huge thing to do in this short space of time, and you know, everybody has to be ever mindful of how serious this disease is, and how careful we have to be in around people, and we're looking after young people especially. You know, the GAA, it's a big thing, like, you know, for clubs to take care of everybody, and everybody should be patient, and it's not easy. I was in town today and was queues everywhere. I couldn't get into the bank, I couldn't get in to use the toilet facilities anywhere, and that's hugely frustrating, and that could spill over outside restrooms and facilities and that as well. So just to be patient is what I would say anyway.
And I suppose with this break that we've had, I suppose it's only the learning for the game. It's just even growing even longer, Nicholas, isn't it? Just the love for the game is back for you, isn't it?
Say that again, Noel.
I say with this long break, it's just the love of the game. You like the big distance between no game. It just shows that the love of the game is still there for you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was heartwarming just to look down at the pictures and see them training. Like, it was great. It was great. I remember St. Patrick's Day this year. I came out of my house. The church was closed, the pub was closed, and the GAA pitch was closed. And I tell you, I was depressed that day, like, you know, because we didn't know what was going to happen, where this was going to go, you know, and everything shut down. You couldn't go beyond 2.5K. And I tell you, that was a depressing day for me anyway, and I'm sure for lots of other people. So to be in the position where we are now, to be able to go along and watch a game, whether it's a junior B game or a senior game or an underage game, it's absolutely brilliant in my opinion. And people love their games, they love their sport, all sorts of sports. But GAA, you know, we really love the game. And I suppose now I really got to appreciate just sitting above the pitch there watching whatever game it is, like, because I wasn't able to do that all summer up to now. So I think most people will really appreciate now to be able to go into games and to see the camaraderie we have amongst, as I'm a supporter now obviously for many years, and the camaraderie we have and the crack we have and the fun we have just going to matches. Like, it's a huge part of our culture, a huge part of our DNA, like, and it was taken away from us there for a while, like. So now it'll be nice to go to Met Sunday morning and go to Met Sunday afternoon and have the roast, and maybe have the roast buds after or whatever.
Well said, Nicholas. Well said. I think we're just bang out of time there. I think Jim's giving me the signal. But that's all for this evening's show. Thanks to Nicholas and Jim. A big thank you to our guests, Seamus Hayes and Páraic McMahon. This show will repeat on Tuesday evening at 5 p.m. The show will also be available on the RCB Sport YouTube channel. So for me, Noel Greene, saying good night, and continue listening to your local community radio station, RCB Radio.